Virtual summits are the most powerful online marketing tool available to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and create an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. If you are ready to take your summit to the next level, then tune into the Virtual Summit Podcast with Dr. Mark T. Wade.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software and creator of the One Day Summit Formula. And I'm on a mission to help you, the summit host, get your summit out to the world in a powerful and impactful way. So let's get started. Hey, Summit host, Dr. Mark T. Wade here, founder of Virtual Summit Software and your host on the Virtual Summit Podcast. We are in for a treat on today's episode. We got legendary Krista Goodrich with us today. Hey, Krista.
Hi, how are you?
Doing wonderful. Thanks so much for being here with us. Now, we're going to dive into some pretty interesting information when it comes to summits and from perspective of a summit speaker. But before we jump into that, I'd love for you to just take a few moments and tell our audience just a little bit more about yourself.
All right. Well, first, thank you, of course, for having me on. I really appreciate it. And just so everyone knows a little bit about me, my name is Krista Goodrich, and I live in sunny Florida very happily. And I am a serial entrepreneur. I am the current owner of 17 different companies, and it's everywhere from real estate to art studios to wedding venues to a bar and a brewery and a bar on wheels. So I also own an electric bicycle company and all kinds of different things. So I try to have my hand in lots of different things because it keeps me interested. I'm also a real estate investor. I invest in properties specifically in the southeastern United States. And then I am an author, a podcaster, a motivational speaker, and an all-around self-proclaimed. So that's a little bit about me for fun. I love to exercise. I do Spartan races. I hang out with my dog. Any water-related, diving, surfing, anything like that, I'm definitely into. And when we are not under coronavirus, I am very much into travel.
Well, you've got a pretty well-rounded or robust portfolio there. That's amazing. Now let's kind of take that expertise, that information, and relate it back a little bit to summits here. Now, with this being said, I actually want to get your perspective. This is not something we chatted about in the pre-interview chat, but I'd like to get your perspective. Having so many different expertises, so many different niches, is not something we normally or commonly see, especially with somebody that we're interviewing on this podcast. They're usually specific into one or, like one specific thing. I'd like to actually kind of flip that script and see why, from your perspective, it's better, maybe as a summit host or just an entrepreneur in general, to have more than one specific niche that you're in.
So I get a lot of different perspectives in all my different fields that I'm in. Some of my companies, you show up and you're wearing a full business suit and it's very professional. And some you're walking in and there's guys laying tile in a building or whatnot. So it's every range of people. And that helps me to engage with whoever I'm talking to in a summit situation or in any situation really, and understand different perspectives and not just stay in my own mind. Like I live in my little bubble. I have my group of friends. I have my little family. But by having all these different businesses and all these different things that I'm involved in, I really get a sense of other people. Because sometimes we get caught up in ourselves and we think, like when I worked in financial services, I was very focused on what everyone kind of thought in that world. By being more spread out in various industries, I get to really get a lot of different perspectives. And I think that just helps me as a human being, but also as a summit person.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, I just had that. I wanted to jump into that for a second with all those expertises that you have. Now, let's kind of go back into summits. First off, as a summit speaker, what's one of the reasons that you enjoy speaking on summits or that you agree to speak on summit?
Because I remember when I was nervous about starting anything, whether it was a business, investing, a workout program, whatever it is, there's always been some resource of a speaker or a book or a podcast nowadays, or something that helps me motivate myself. In fact, just the other day, I was going for a jog and I was listening to a podcast and it motivated me to do something I've been wanting to do for a long time. So if I can give that gift back to others that I've received, it just makes me feel better about what I'm doing. And I have put a lot of time and effort into learning how to start businesses and understanding finance and understanding money, and more time than most people are going to. So why not share that knowledge? There's plenty for everyone out there. So it just makes me feel good to share the knowledge.
Virtual Summit's software makes hosting a summit easier than ever. The only software in the world designed specifically for hosting a summit lets you set up a summit in a matter of hours with no tech skill or team needed. You can try out the Virtual Summit's software free at virtualsummits.com. But hurry, this is a limited offer.
So do you think then, as a summit speaker, or for like maybe audiences out there, that summits are a great way to get types of knowledge? Do you think there's a certain style or type of knowledge that's better on a summit, or do you think it can really be for about anything?
It can be, depending on how it's set up. I mean, if it's a summit that's very technology based, I may not be in that summit because, as you heard in my repertoire, that's not part of it. I don't get it. I wish I did, but I don't. So depending if it's a very niche summit, then you may or may not want to spend your time there if it relates to you. If it's a more broad summit, I think that can really be very accessible to the general public and give you lots of knowledge. And again, you're going to learn stuff that you didn't know, and you may learn things that you didn't know that you wanted to know. So again, a lot of people talk about entrepreneurship right now. Maybe you want to be an entrepreneur, but you hear something that makes you think, oh crap, maybe I don't want to be an entrepreneur. Or you hear something and think, oh yeah, I really want to go down that path. I do think it'd be great for the general public if it's a very broad summit.
Now, when it comes to being on these summits, are you being reached out to, or do you have a strategy for finding summits and getting on them?
So both. As I said, I'm an author and I do speak. So in those activities, I then make new connections of people that will reach out to me and ask me to speak on different platforms, summits and just regular speaking platforms. And then I also am constantly marketing. That never changes. And I think there's a misconception that like I'm successful. It is what it is. I wrote a book about it. It's not a secret. But that doesn't mean that my success will continue tomorrow. And so every single day I'm fighting for success. And so yeah, I'm out there looking for different opportunities to be parts of summits and to speak and to invest in other businesses and anything that can get me out in the world. You live one life, and so the more I can do, the better.
So when you're looking for summits, what is the most common way that you've been able to find them? And for example, when you reach out to them, what is the way that you position yourself?
So social media, by far, easiest way to find different summits. There's so much information, whether you're using Facebook or Instagram or one of the many others. Because of my age, I'm in my 40s, Facebook is my platform. I'm trying Instagram. I'm not that good at it. I don't take that many pictures, but I'm trying. But I don't know. I think that when I reach out to people, you've got to have an interesting story. So everyone's an entrepreneur nowadays. Everyone does some kind of investing, or most people do some kind of investing, whether it's just saving in their checking account, whatever it is, So your story has to be interesting. Mine's interesting because I do so many things, and there's very few people that will say, I have 17 businesses and I invest in real estate and all the different things I do. That makes me stand out. So you've got to find what makes you stand out. Maybe it's that you run a gymnastics facility and you've grown it into the largest gymnastics facility in your area. I don't know. Everyone's got their own story, but you have to stand out. So my story, my stand out is that I do so much, and people always wonder, well, how do you do it all? It's just time management. So just make your story.
It's just time management, that little thing right there that we all struggle with. Now, let's flip it back to when people are reaching out to you. So do you just take every summit opportunity that comes your way, or do you have some kind of rule or internal method that you're like, no, I don't do that? Or if they reach out to you in a certain way, you're like, no, like talk us through that kind of.
Okay, so I wish I could tell you I had a better system for that, but I would be lying, and so I'm not going to do that. I go with feel, like one, how they approach me, and then I'll research who's approaching me. Is it some BS thing that no one cares about, or is it something that actually has value, not just to myself, but to the listeners? And then I'll, just see how I vibe with the person. If it's someone, there's so many people on this planet, and there's some people you're going to vibe with really well, and there's others that it's just not, you're not going to feel it. And so why waste their time or mine? And so that's where I'm at this point. I can be a little more picky. If you're just starting off, I would say take almost anything you can get unless it's detrimental to your business. But anything you can do, like when I first started doing podcasts, anyone that asked me to be on a podcast, I was on it. I didn't care. Now I'm quite a bit more picky because my time's more valuable, and I just don't feel like doing ones that I'm not feeling, So, but when I first started, I mean, I think if you're just starting off in anything, you better have your nose to the ground and you better be ready to grind it, or someone else is going to pass you and work harder than you.
So if we're going to give some advice to the summit hosts right now, they're doing some speaker research, maybe outreach. What do they need to be considering when they're reaching out to speakers?
I think you need to pre-interview them, like you and I talked about. I think you want to, talk to them a little bit. And I know you can't talk to everyone, so there's got to. If you get 500 applications, you can't talk to 500 people. So have some kind of pre-screening process of, if their application's boring, just get rid of them. They're going to be boring in real life. I mean, sorry, Charlie, that's how it works. But then however you pre-screen, whatever you're trying to get your funnel down to, then I would have a brief 5-minute or less conversation with these people. And one, make them stick to 5 minutes, because that'll tell you if they're actually going to follow your time rules. And two, see how the conversation goes. Is it upbeat? Is it exciting? Is it energetic? Is it something that you would want to listen to? And if it's not, nice to meet you, move on. So those are the two things I would start with. And then if you've got a really good stable of applicants after that, then you're just going to have to use whatever is most applicable for whatever your summit's about.
Excellent right there. Now, we talked in our pre-interview chat a little bit about some of the things that have stood out on some of the successful summits you've been on. Let's talk through a couple of those, like things that have stood out, things that have impressed you on some of the summits you've been on.
Wow factor in the speakers. If you've got to stay engaged. So to use an example, if you went to a in-person summit, so virtual summit and in-person summit are basically the same thing. The only difference is where I can't cuss on this one, where your booty is sitting. You're looking for basically the same thing. If I go to a seminar, a conference, a summit in a hotel, in some fancy schmancy hotel, and the speaker gets up and I'm not sitting on the edge of my seat, I'm bored, I've checked out, I'm doodling on my notepad, I'm actually probably scrolling through my phone. That's going to happen online too, except you don't have the luxury of seeing where people are sitting. They are going to, instead of getting up and leaving the room or getting on their phone, they're going to log off. So you've got to have engaging people. You've got to have interesting stories. And there's so many interesting stories out there. Everyone doesn't have to be the biggest success. Everyone doesn't have to be, I'll use my role model, Richard Branson. Everyone doesn't have to be that person. They don't have to be the world's best speaker or the most successful person, but they have to be really, really engaging to keep people listening. That would be my number one takeaway. And then make sure that you're getting people that are relevant to your audience. If, I talk about finance, but because I talk about finance, my audience is not financial people. My audience is people that don't understand finance. So if I get someone that comes onto something I'm doing and they talk about price to earnings ratios and venture capitalism, any words that are just a little bit scary to the average person, my people are lost. So I make sure that I deal with people that talk in layman's terms that are very real, because that's my client base. I might understand the technical terms of finance, but it's not about what I understand, it's about what my clients understand.
Be sure to check out the speaker management tool inside your virtual summit software, which lets you quickly and easily recruit and manage your speakers on your virtual summit, literally eliminating hundreds of hours of work. Get more information at virtualsummits.com.
It's so true. Understanding your avatar, your audience, being able to relate to them and solve the problems they have. We talk about that a lot on this podcast, as far as be problem specific, focused on the pain, and then provide the solution. So from the other perspective on, let's look at it from a speaker, because we have a lot of summit speakers that are listening to this podcast as well. What are some tips or suggestions that you could give them to help them improve maybe their speech, their session?
All right. So something I have done since I was in high school, I want to say, it's been a long time. I over practice. There's no such thing to me as too much practice. So if I'm going to go into something, if it's speaking, if it's running, if it's painting, whatever it is, I'm going to over practice and be the best that I can be. I might not be the best in the world, but I'm going to be the best that I can be. So if I'm going to be on a summit, if I'm going to talk about points, I'm going to pre-practice that speech over and over again. And sometimes my audience is my 3 dogs. And sometimes my audience is one of my foreign exchange students that may or may not understand anything I'm saying. But something is looking at me with eyes and listening. And if worst case, if I don't have that, I'll practice in my car. I'll practice by myself in my house. My biggest critic and my biggest fan is my husband. And he's not a critic in a negative way. He wants me to be the best I can be too. He knows it's important to me. So he's the hardest person for me to speak in front of. Once I do a presentation in front of him, then I know I'm going to nail it wherever else I go. So whatever your topic is, like when I'm on a podcast or when I'm in a summit, I don't want to do a pre-canned speech because that's boring. But I have my topics. Like when I talk about my 5 F-its, which is something I talk about a lot, I already know what they are. I already know a lot of questions I'm going to get asked about that because I've been there before. I've practiced it before. So anyone that's looking to do summits, practice like crazy. And again, if you're not practicing the most, someone else is going to out-practice you. You know, I tell everyone all the time, you might be smarter than me, you might be prettier, you might be more talented, but something you're not going to do is outwork me. And that's, for me, that's what's worked. I wasn't blessed with a beautiful gift of some kind of crazy talent. So I just practice.
I love that. And then you can also, you know, for everybody listening here, once you get to the point where you're confident with the speech and or message and want to take it to that next level before you actually hit the lights, is there's Facebook Lives now. We can actually do this in front of other people, get a little bit comfortable putting that message out there, rehearsing it. And one of the things I'll add to that there, Krista, is look at where people, and this is okay, and we know it's going to happen. People are not going to be engaged with the entire aspect of the speech, but if you want to understand where and when you need to maybe tweak it, is look at when you're getting the most like kind of thumbs up or likes and when you're starting to see that drop off. Then you can very quickly and easily look at where you need to tweak that. So that's great insights there.
Yeah, and I thought that what you just said, when you're practicing in front of people, whether it's on Facebook Live or physically in front of people will give you a thumbs up like with their eyes too and with their facial expressions. So when people are nodding and smiling and looking at you, they're engaged. If they're just sitting there with a like frozen face, you lost them. So you have to start learning how to read people to know where your strong points are. Oh, this one's good. This one's fire. Keep working with this one. Or I really lost people on that. I'm going to have to change that a little bit.
That is so true. So when we're talking about engagement, what are some maybe some strategies, some tactics, or just something that you add into your talks, your presentations that help keep the audience engaged?
If possible, I want audience participation. That's not always possible. But you can always give them things that they can do if they can't physically be engaged with you at the time. So if possible, like you and I are talking and I could say, hey, raise your hand if you have ever been to Florida, and you could raise your hand, and that's engagement and it's making you pay attention to me. In a room full of people, that's pretty easy to do. If not, then what you can say when you're doing a virtual is, all right, so, we just talked about these things. I want you to write down the 5 things that we just talked about, and under each one, like give them something that they need to physically do. They're not all going to do it, but give them something that their brain should be thinking, even if they're not doing it, that their brain is thinking about doing it. So just anything you can do to make them engaged, or, hey, after this, I want you to send me the top 3 things that you learned from this. And if you do, I'll send you a free copy of my book, or whatever, something that makes them continue to think about what they learned. Or I like to do an action item on almost everything I do, which might be, all right, so today we learned about such and such. What I want you to do is for the next 7 days, anytime you get a $5 bill, put it in a safe, put it in an envelope, put it, an easy action. Again, I talk about finance a lot. So an easy actionable step of something that's not a huge hurdle for the listener. If you say, okay, well, we're going to end this and I want you to go write a 30-day plan, that's 30 days that they have to screw it up. So give them a quick, short, easy plan that they can follow through and feel confident about themselves. It'll make them feel good about them, and it'll make them feel good about you as a speaker.
With the Ever Summit feature inside the Virtual Summit software, you can rerun your summit as if it were live, ongoing forever with one click of a button. This now lets you continue to use your summit forever, bringing in qualified and engaged leads every month into your business. Get more information at virtualsummit.com.
And that's so important to have that kind of pre-planned in your talk, and or if it's a Q&A interview, to have that kind of sitting in the back of your mind, looking for the opportunity for when, that host asks you a question, you can kind of put that out there, because not all the time are the summit hosts the best interviewers. We've found that. So what is maybe a thought you have with that? Let's say you're getting interviewed by a summit host that's just not the best interviewer. What is something that you could help our other summit speakers in this scenario?
Yeah, and you got to be prepared on both sides for that. I've been a host with a guest that just yes and no answered me, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, did you not know we were having a conversation? And then I've also been on the flip side where the host is asking questions that really aren't leading me into a long explanation of anything, where I just have to keep going with it. So I like to write down my questions. I like to write down answers. I might never use them, but at least I've thought through a lot of potentially what might be asked or what I might want to ask. And when I'm writing my questions as a host, if I say, what activities do you like to do? That's a whole lot different than saying, list 5 things that you like. I don't know. That's a terrible example, but there's ways that you can start to make your brain think. You have to be prepared on both sides of that your host or your speaker might not keep talking. And you have to fill that gap. You have to fill the air, because you're bringing people of value. And if you get silence, that's pretty awkward. So get ready to talk about things that you might not even have any idea that you're going to talk about, because you might just be ad-libbing. But you can try to prepare as much as possible in advance.
Preparation and practice for sure definitely helps. And then kind of having some go-tos, especially as a speaker. You were just saying, having these either engagement strategies that you can talk people through, and or stories that you can resort back to, and just kind of taking over a little bit to some degree the conversation and helping align it in the way that you need to. And this is a very common issue or problem. There's a lot of summit hosts out there that have not done any type of kind of interview training or have had much practice. So they're still a little green around the edges, if you will. So being able to step up like that as a summit speaker is very important. Now, as we kind of roll through the back end of this episode here, what is maybe some strategies or even just wisdom that you would offer to summit hosts that right now that are thinking about, should I do a summit? Should I not do a summit? Like what are some pieces of wisdom or advice you could give them?
So I will tell you that honestly, for about a week after this all happened with the coronavirus stuff, I got frozen, which hasn't happened to me in probably 20 years. And it surprised me because I don't normally get frozen on stuff, but I did. I got frozen. I gave myself my week to figure out what in the heck was going on with the world and my opinions on it or whatnot. And then I pulled up my big girl panties and I moved on. And so my belief is that I'm going to come out of this super strong because I've been super proactive. I'm putting out information that's helpful. I'm not selling anything right now. It's not a time for selling, in my opinion, but I am giving useful information to my client base. So I think if you're thinking about starting a summit, people are at home, people are bored, people are looking for ways to become educated, to become smarter, to not be in this situation again, to improve their life in some way. So if you're thinking about putting a summit together, why not do all the legwork now? And then you can make a decision. Do you want to launch it now? Or none of us know. Is this a month? Is this 3 months? How long is this going to last? Well, maybe you're not sure. So wait a few weeks and then it might make sense to go ahead and launch it. But if you have all the work done, then you're ready to go for whenever the opportune time for you is. Plus, if you end up having more time, you can edit more, you can add more features, you can add more people, you can make it really, really awesome so that coming out of this or being in the middle of this, you're the strongest and best out there. So I would definitely recommend, if it's something you're interested in doing, why not use this time? You probably have more free time than you ever anticipated. You'd be a fool not to take advantage of the time in some capacity. And I say that, but I should be exercising more during this too, and I'm not doing that. So we can't all do everything, right?
Well, if we're not going to exercise, we can at least do a summit. That's for sure. So amazing. Well, Krista, I know everybody listening is going, well, how can I find more about Krista? Where's she hanging out at? How can I get in touch with her? So let them know where you're hanging out and the best way to get in touch with you.
Sure. The best places to find me are my website is thebossladyinvestor.com. I've got a blog there and then a little tribe there as well. And then on Facebook, you can either follow me at The Boss Lady Investor or at Krista Goodrich. I know that's weird that I do my personal one as well, but I'm super active on that. And then Instagram is the Boss Lady Investor as well. So any of those places. I'm not really good at Twitter, not good at LinkedIn. I'm working on Instagram. I'm better, but not great. But Facebook and my website are the best.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for being here with us today and sharing these amazing insights.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great. And everyone stay safe and be well.
Absolutely. And thank you, all you Summit hosts, for hanging out with Krista and I. I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, your host here on the Virtual Summit podcast. Don't forget to check out all of these amazing goodies that Krista was just talking to us about in the show notes at podcast.virtualsummits.com/148. And just remember, your message matters. So go out there and make an impact in the world, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the Virtual Summit podcast. Head over to the show notes to check out all the links and resources from this episode, and be sure to grab your free trial of the Virtual Summit software.
Now, I want to end this episode by saying to all the Summit hosts listening right now, I believe in you, and you can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and most importantly, make an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. So don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started, because imperfect action is always better than no action. Thank you, and see you on the next episode.